Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today is the final of my 4 videos looking at different sites that can help you find remote and freelance work. So today we are going to be looking at sites that are very specifically about remote jobs. More generic sites like LinkedIn now do a lot of remote work, but there are also specialized sites. Although many of these are in the IT field, there are also a couple of specialist ones, and so those are the ones that I'm going to start off looking at before moving into some more general remote work sites. Our first site that we're looking at is called Hitmaker. And I started with this one because it is a little bit more niche than some of the others. In fact, the first two we look at will be niche, and then we will see that there is lots that are pretty similar to each other. So Hitmaker has a whole lot of jobs in the gaming industry. And so we can see here ranges everything from chat moderators down to data analysts. I actually clicked on that one because I thought it sounded pretty interesting. So we've got the links to all of these down below the video. We can see 950 jobs, and not a ton of jobs. I've filtered for remote, and then we've got all sorts of different kinds of esports jobs. So I thought that was a pretty cool one, and certainly for some people that will really appeal. Our second one was a little bit more surprising to me, the remote nurse job board. So there's certainly some parts of the medical sector that have started to embrace online. But I was a little bit surprised that nurses could be one of them, but it kind of makes sense. And we scroll down and we see that a lot of it is kind of triage, telemedicine type care. So things that a nurse might do in, say, a GP's clinic, a chunk of that is actually stuff that they can do online as well. So if you are a RN, a registered nurse, or healthcare professional, you may not have actually thought about doing remote work, but it is something where there's a chunk of jobs. They are predominantly, or perhaps exclusively, American. Just look through, certainly all the ones here, New York, Florida, Texas, but doing remote triage and things like that. Pretty neat, pretty different for someone that has had a background in healthcare but perhaps doesn't want to be doing that face to face anymore. So those are two very niche sites. Now we're going to look at some that are maybe not so much. So the world has really embraced remote jobs, and certainly LinkedIn and plenty of other sites now will list them. But there have always been some amount of remote jobs out there. One place where we see this is with startups, and particularly tech startups. So Y Combinator, they have a jobs page, and we can see lots of the Y Combinator startup companies who are remote. Actually, that one's not remote, that's in Dublin, but there's a chunk of them in here which are remote. Predominantly IT. Sometimes you'll also see business development manager, which is basically sales, in there as well. But we've got that linked up. If you are IT oriented, you could get a job where maybe you might get some nice stock options, things like that. We work remotely. Apparently, the largest remote work community in the world has, again, lots of IT related jobs. And you start to see a pattern emerging. So remoteforme.com, find a remote job, and again, lots of tech. There's a few down here: product, marketing, support. So not everything on this page is tech, but it is fairly oriented. It makes sense because that is an area where it's going to be easier to do the job from a distance. And amongst there, we'll notice big data, machine learning, data scientist, and good old R makes an appearance, and statistics. So it could be something in there for you and me. Remoteok.com. Again, a few slightly funkier ones in here. Web3 community data scientist at OpenSea. So OpenSea, Binance, Polygon. So this one has a Not all that many jobs. We can see only 16 new jobs posted today, but some Web3 and some very kind of crypto oriented jobs as well. Research analyst intern, another one that could be interesting to you. Next up, we've got Flex Jobs. So Flex Jobs, number one job site for remote work since 2007. I don't know if I trust the marketer that wrote that, but maybe that's true. There's certainly lots and lots of sites. Not much it really tells us here. 29,000 jobs. We can jump in and search for one if we would like, but we're not going to because what we find, and here's some more that I found, there are now lots and lots of these sites, and they're all variations on a theme. You can see some like the virtual vocations, working nomads, perhaps a little bit older, and were built around that digital nomad community, people that live in a generally cheap overseas place but want to continue doing work. Some of these are newer than others, and I'll list them all here. You can go through, have a look. I didn't see a lot of duplications. It did seem to be different jobs, but once I got to this point, the repetition I thought was going to be just a little bit too much. Each of these sites is slightly different variation, but very much of the same thing. So that is it for today, and that is the end of my 4 videos looking at different remote and freelance job sites. Hopefully it's been helpful to you. I will be back with more statistics, data, and research videos next week.